dumbos. That was Raise Your Fist by DeadNet Order, and I can definitely discern some influence of The Offspring in this little audible concoction. Not that this is a bad thing at all. I have always felt that The Offspring was the musical equivalent of a sugar rush on a dirt bike. Fast, aggressive, it fights dirty. But it is the kind of experience that'll leave you exhausted, covered in mud, and likely nursing a concussion. Anyway, news from the Galactic Sphere. Most Helldivers have redeployed over to Veld, leaving New Stockholm in a precarious position. At the moment of this recording, the Liberation Fleet would require about 86% of their total number, knocking out missions left, right, and center in order to secure a win here. While I am of the belief that no major order is unwinnable by design, sadly this part of it definitely is now. New Stockholm was a time-based directive, whereas we could have come along to claim Veld at any time that we wanted. I really don't think the Helldivers made the right call here. Further compounding the major order is the fact that we are woefully behind on completed operations, with projections coming in at 55% of our quota by the deadline. Yeesh, that is not a happy number. Here's hoping that maybe High Command will come up with some kind of harebrained scheme to speed us along our way. Now, I think part of this issue is that most don't consider the Squids to be much fun to fight, and I think that is in large part due to a misunderstanding of what the Illuminate can do versus what they can't. The Illuminate really are the perfect mix of an enemy faction. High-speed attacks mixed with horde-style deployments intermixed with annoying bullet sponges, highly agile air attackers that are deadly accurate, and heavy armor to back it all up. These fluffers really did their homework here. Leviathans still suck, though. However, I believe that a lot of divers are sleeping on a weapon that takes the Illuminate and makes them utterly trivial, even on D10s. The humble Blitzer. No, really, I'm serious. These things massively ruined Squidward's day, so I guess it's time for another episode of the Geneva Suggestion where I explain myself. The Blitzer actually does the same amount of damage as the Arc Thrower, that being 250 for every trigger pull, but it is split into 5 distinct lightning bolts with medium armor pen as compared to the Arc Thrower's anti-tank 3. The effective range is somewhat low, only about 50 meters or so, but voteless overseers and flesh mobs are always trying to get in close, so it doesn't really matter too much. There's roughly a 1.5-second recycle time to the Blitzer, giving it a RPM of about 45 versus an Arc Thrower's 60. Some have asked what this recycle actually does, and I assure you that it is extremely necessary. When the Blitzer fires, its high-energy arcs lead channels of ionized plasma within its firing chamber. You can actually see this with lightning bolts in real life. The visible part of the lightning strike is an ionized plasma channel, and it's around in the neighborhood of about 30,000 Kelvin, such that anything struck by this definitely ain't coming back for seconds. The ionization actually renders the air itself conductive, hence the discharge of static within the lightning column. Same concept here. Leading ionized plasma within the firing chamber increases the weapon's native conductivity. Now, you'd think that would be a good thing, right? Lightning gun becomes more conductive equals more and stronger zaps. You're right, just not in the way that you want to be. See, electricity flows along the path of least resistance. Air has innate resistance. The inside of your gun now doesn't. Are you seeing the problem here yet? If you fire the Blitzer off while its firing chamber is still ionized, it is going to conduct a fatal short circuit and explode in your hands with the force of an impact grenade. So that's why we do things the same way that Mother Nature does. The chambering isn't anything that generates energy, but it's rather an air pump that clears the firing chamber of ionization and makes it ready to fire. The Ministry of Science had a choice of either packing Helldivers with argon, which doesn't react with anything, or using oxygen native to planets for the air pump, granting divers infinite ammo and actually improving the firepower of the Blitzer because the weapon's discharge ignites the air, at the cost of sometimes making them instantly explode on oxygen-rich planets. Given the choices, I'll take the extra firepower but sometimes explosion for 500, Alex. Now, during the course of a normal mission, the whole exploding in your hands thing ideally shouldn't happen if you're using the Blitzer correctly and it was built right. You should be okay. Mostly. The biggest problem that you're likely to run into is that the Blitzer hungers your blood, and it isn't picky over whose gets shed. Wallop will absolutely ruin voteless swarms with the heroic act of simply holding the trigger down, stunlock flesh mobs, and make elevated overseers hold still for once in their miserable lives. It'll also put your squad mates into cardiac arrest. Ironically, we would attempt to use a defib unit to fix that. It's strange, really. It's like Gilligan finally getting off the island and then choking to death on a coconut. Now, the arc thrower uses the same approach, but a different method. When you charge it, you're forcing energy from the micro E710 reactor into the firing capacitor, and when the trigger is released, the thrower makes use of a monodirectional solid-state semiconductor called a thyristor. Thyristor? I really can't pronounce this. Thyristor. This is my fourth take attempting this. Anyway, the thyristor instantly dumps 25 megajoules from the capacitor into the arc emitter, easily enough to overcome the natural resistance of the air towards the next most conductive target. But it is not enough to overcome my inability to say this word. Thyristor. There, got it. This is the part where everyone learns what happens to a bug that gets struck by lightning. The same thing that happens to everything else. The reason the bolt changed to multiple enemies is because the struck unfortunate target is themselves partially ionized, creating what is called a charge distribution imbalance with a conductivity differential between themselves and other enemies around them. You know what that means, right? There will be a quiz on this later. The amount of energy behind the lightning bolt is more than enough to overcome the natural air resistance between multiple targets. Or allies if they're unlucky. And now you understand the mechanics behind why an arc thrower fires chain lightning. Unfortunately, the real reason behind why we don't have any orbital-based arc weapons is because it would take a lot of power to overcome an entire atmosphere's electrical resistance. Whereas a simple arc thrower can throw down 25 megajoules, a bolt of lightning conjuring wrath from the heavens contains anywhere from 1,000 to 10,000 megajoules. I should also reiterate that this kind of high-voltage current is utterly devastating to Illuminate Prion-based life and causes their animating misfolded proteins to break down almost immediately. Flesh mobs will really unappreciate this one and take twice the amount of damage from any variety of arc weapon, be it Blitzer, Arc Thrower, De-Escalator, or the humble, if somewhat concerningly bloodthirsty K9 Bark Thrower Guard Dog. So, how does the De-Escalator work in all of this? It's actually fairly simple. Each grenade is a miniaturized capacitor bank that is packed with high voltage. The impact trigger is a piezoelectric primer that, when triggered, releases so much voltage that it ionizes the very air and makes the local area extremely disagreeable to anything undemocratic nearby. Harvesters in particular dislike the sudden change in atmospheric ionization, not to mention the heat differential that is more than enough to shatter their firing lenses, and the EMP Alt F4s their core out of this section of reality post-haste. And that is how Helldivers win debates.
Wait a second, I thought you were talking about how Helldivers win fights.
Fights? Oh man, those are way more violent. Now, I should also stress something here, Helldivers, breaking the fourth wall for just a moment. My pride as a writer refuses to allow me to rely upon technobabble. You will never hear me talking about reversing the phase couplings or anything like that, unless it's funny. Everything that I have talked about today is based at least partially on real science, with a few minor embellishments, hence the term science fiction. The arc thrower is basically a Tesla coil on steroids that got told to believe in itself, and the only embellishment is for the unlimited ammo, easily solved by a miniaturized E710 reactor. Ironically, this is the same embellishment that allows our Alcubierre warp drives to function as well. The theory is real, but it requires far too much energy to be practical, so Helldivers requires C710 to hand-wave that away. All of the concepts that I have covered tonight have been painstakingly researched, with non-MacGuffins, spatio-temporal hyperlinks, umbral moonshine, dihydrogen monoxide, IJD drive, meaning it just does, or quantum anything. I guess what I'm trying to say is, hell yeah, I am a better writer than Gene Roddenberry. Babylon 5 was way better than Deep Space Nine. Michael J. Straczynski utterly schooled everyone, and I have it on good authority that he personally threw Neelix out an airlock. This is the hill I will now die upon. Come at me. And with that triggered flame war in the comments, that has been Liberty's Latest with me, Pandera the Radio Angel. I've got one more day before my big move, and I am desperately trying to finish up all these projects because I'm going to go off the air for 2 weeks. Please be patient with me, everyone. I am small and cute, but I am also frail and delicate. For liberty, for freedom, for democracy, and for the preservation of Angel's Refuge.